Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. On this week's video, I'm going to be taking a closer look at my brand new amp, the Victory Super Duchess, the V140. Now, if you're a fan of myself or you follow Friday Fretworks on any kind of fleeting level, you may well know that for the past few months, maybe 5 or 6 now, I've been using Victory amplifiers in any live gigs or any kind of live context. Now, the first amp of Victory's that I actually tried was the V40, and that was very much the amp which I fell head over heels in love with. A couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, how great it sounds generally. It takes pedals beautifully. It's an incredibly versatile little amp with a great amount of gain on tap should you need it. I don't really use it in that kind of way, but if you want to get the dirty up, you can. It very much does that. But the one thing which really sealed the deal was that considering it's only a 40 watt amp, and I say only because I've been relatively used to high wattage amps down the years. My first kind of proper amp was a 100 watt Marshall JCM 800 combo, so I've been relatively used to high powered amps. Considering it's only 40 watts, it just has a fantastic amount of headroom. That said, honestly, the more headroom I can get, the better. One of my kind of favourite amps that I've ever used is a Fuchs Clean Machine. I've done a Friday Fretworks on that in the past. It's a great sounding amp, but the one thing which really kind of sealed the deal in regard to buying that particular amp was how much headroom it has. It's a 75 watt amp and it just does clean for days. So the cleaner my amps, the cleaner I can set them, and the more I can just rely on pedals to give me any dirt or any kind of stuff later on, the happier I am. So you can understand my sort of expectation or anticipation when Victory announced that they were going to be doing a 100 watt version of the V40, the V140. Now, the obvious question on everyone's lips, I guess, is in 2019, who the hell needs a 100 watt amp? Stages are getting quieter as a rule. The more guys I know using in-ears or using a Helix or using a Kemper, stages are just getting quieter. Nary a gig goes by when I'm not told or asked politely and then impolitely later on to turn down by the sound guy. I think people see you rocking up with maybe 2 amps, using them, you know, just to kind of stereo pair or whatever, and just instantly assume that you're going to be the loudest thing in the world. It's very much not the case, but stages are undoubtedly getting quieter. So why would you want a 100 watt amp? Now, the main thing to explain about a 100 watt amp, or at least this 100 watt amp to be specific, is that it's not 2 and a bit times louder than the V40 as you might think. Obviously, that's the general kind of expectation, I guess, is that they're going to be louder. Undoubtedly it is louder, but the main thing about this amp which really suckered me in was the fact that it being 100 watts, you have that infinite amount of headroom, I guess. And as I said, being a guy that gets his dirt, gets his fuzz, gets all of his effects from pedals, that really appeals to me. The cleaner I can set an amp and the more powerful and punchy it is in its kind of raw state, I guess, the happier I am. And that's very much where this amp falls into the equation. Now, the plan for the next couple of weeks is actually to build a wet dry rig entirely inspired by that pedal show. This was not something that I'd really kind of ever thought of doing prior to this, but I'm very much intrigued by it and just want to get my head around whether it will, you know, make me sound that much better. I guess ultimately anything which gives me a little bit of a crutch, I'm all for. So the plan is to use the V140 as my dry amp and use the V40 with its 1x12 cab as opposed to the 2x12 vertical cab with the 140 as the wet amp. So that's the plan. So stick around in the next couple of weeks. I've no doubt you'll see a very special episode of something pop up explaining how that is put together and, you know, how I'm using it ultimately. Anyway, I'm not going to waffle on anymore. This is an amp that undoubtedly just is best explained by letting you listen to it. It's an absolutely gorgeous creation. It weighs a fair amount, I'll be honest. The transformer in it is fairly big and fairly weighty, but the sort of cons are undoubtedly totally outweighed by the pros of it just being an absolute monster. I actually shot a video for Victory about this amp, which takes you through the full kind of gamut of sounds, I guess. So if you want to hear it in a dirty kind of context from the amp itself, do check out the link below in the description box, and just, you know, that's a more kind of comprehensive rundown of it. But this video is all about showing you how I'm going to use it, which is running my pedalboard into the front of it and keeping it as clean as possible. Anyway, let's stop whittering on and let you have a listen to it. As ever, please do subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up, would be amazing, and I shall see you next week for another episode of Friday Fretworks. Cheers guys, take care.